So let's get started. Okay, so electronic thesis and dissertation, what we're going to do is talk about the process and how you can get your thesis or dissertation into the proper format for us to get you out of here. So I'm going to tell you one thing, I'm going to say this over and over again, the number one question we get asked is, am I going to graduate? That's totally up to your committee. Totally up to your committee. So what I mean by that is if your committee signs off and sends it and says you're done, you submit it to us, you will graduate that semester. You will graduate. If you're trying to graduate summer and you submit it to ETD, you will graduate in the summer. All we're trying to do is to check formatting. We do not read the content. So that's up to your committee. All we're doing is formatting. And what will happen is the quicker you respond to our request for formatting edits, the quicker you'll be done. And so the deal is that when you submit it to us, we're the only people that can change that Z in your dissertation or thesis to an S. And we only change it once we know for sure that you have completed all of the formatting edits. So I'm going to go through today and kind of show you, but you will graduate. We get about 10 emails a day on that question alone, so you will graduate. So let's get started. So the most important thing is our ETD Resource Center. Okay, and so there is the link for that. And so on that page, it lists all of the important things that you need to know. And so if you go there, what I love about it is that you will find the deadlines. You will find how to format certain pages. You will find what you need to know. It's all on there. It's a lot of information. We totally know that, but we're very excited about having all of that information there. You can always shoot us an email. We're happy to answer those emails. And then these slides are already up on the website, so you can pull these things down again. One of the things I really, really want to stress as of utmost importance to you is that when we're talking formatting, I don't care what format you use. I get a lot of questions now, and I do appreciate them. APA 6, APA 7, I don't care. Whatever format that you choose, I ask that you do it consistently. If you want to use APA 6, that's fine with me. If you want to use APA 7, that's fine with me. If you want to use Chicago style, MLA, whatever you want to use, that's fine with me, as long as it's consistent. Let me give you a sampling of some of the top errors that people make. They don't use the same font throughout the entire document. Page 1, chapter 1 is Times New Roman. Page 2, chapter 1's Calibri. Chapter 3 is done in Arial 10-point font. Chapter 4 is done in Times New Roman 12-point font. That is probably the number one error. So we're looking for a consistent use of font, an inch margin around the page. However you want to do your headings, do them consistently. If you're going to do them all caps, do them all caps. If you're going to do them sentence style, do them sentence style. If level 1 is going to be in the center and level 2 is going to be to the left, do that. If you're going to bold level 1 and not bold level 2, do that. I hope it's clear that what I'm looking for is consistency, okay? We're not too picky about the format, it's the consistency. Table captions go across the top. Figure captions go across the bottom. Figures and should be on the same page, okay? So however you want to do them. If you want to put all your figures and tables at the end of the chapter, fine. And then just put see table 1 and put it in the chapter. If you want to put it within the chapter, fine. We work with you, okay? So however you set it up, that's the most important thing. What we are concerned about is Are there copyright violations, HIPAA violations? I'm going to talk about those things as we go along. So again, I just want to kind of put you at ease. We are here to help you. I know it's a stressful time. You want to graduate. We're the last hurdle to get there. We are really trying to make it as easy as possible. So let's get into some of the nitty gritty. Can you, next slide. There you go. So, what we start off here are some of the formatting pages, okay? So what I love about what we've done on the website is, like, for the title page, we give you an example. We write it out. We tell you exactly what you need to do. Then we also provide some samples. We show you what it looks like if you have, you know, no constant. Well, see, here you go. So what it looks like when you have a title page, and it tells you. So you've got the wording, and then here it tells you, you put the title. You skip 2 lines or whatever. So, because I can't see the slides at all. They're too small on my screen. But what it does is it gives you specific instructions. Now, the question we get asked all of the time is, how come you don't have a template? Simple, very simple answer to that. First of all, titles are way too long. Some people's titles are 3 lines long, okay? Titles, in all the places that I publish and things, titles are 10 to 15 words in length. So think about shortening your title. But as you can see, if a title is 3 lines long, I've seen a title with 50 words in it. I mean, it's just too long, okay? So that takes up too much space. Some of you have 4 people on your committee. Some of you have 6 people on your committee. That takes up too much space. Some of you have a concentration, others of you don't. So we can't even come up with all of the permutations necessary to give you a format. So it doesn't work that well. I will give you a tip. One of the hardest things that people have in terms of formatting their dissertation is the page numbering at the bottom. The front matter, which we're asking if you want us to look at those front pages, the table of contents, the abstract, the title page, all of that. You can turn that in now for the next 2 weeks. We'll look at it and send it back to you. That's where we spend the bulk of our time looking at formatting issues. So if you want to turn that in now, you can. You're like, but I haven't written my abstract yet. I really don't care, right? Mickey Mouse, Mickey Mouse, Mickey Mouse, Mickey Mouse, Mickey Mouse. What we're looking for is how you're going to format it. I'm not looking at the text. We'll help you with the table of contents. People struggle with leader dots. I'll tell you right now, the period and the space bar is not your friend. Do not use them if you don't have to. So for instance, on a table of contents, do not put subjects, period, 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 page number. No, 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 it will not be straight. The numbers will not line up straight on the right-hand side of the page. There's something called leader dots that are under the, and it's on the website to tell you how to do it, but we'll help you. You go up under paragraph, go down to tabs, and you set leader dots. If you do left 0.5, and you can put in all your tabs for that, and then on the right-hand side, it's 6.5. So you type in subjects and you hit tab, and it goes all the way to the end, and it allows you to put your numbers in perfectly straight. So what I'm going to tell you is, if you spend more than 10 or 15 minutes on formatting something, stop and shoot us an email. I've had so many people do periods for their entire table of contents. It is so hard to reformat that. Please don't use the Microsoft Office table of contents. It doesn't work. It just doesn't format right. It causes you more problems than it's worth. I had a student turn it in December. He spent hours. I retyped the thing in 15 minutes and fixed it. I could not fix it in the table of the Microsoft Office table of contents. The other thing is doing the page numbers. I started on this. You use little Roman numerals in the beginning. Here's the trick. You have 2 separate documents. The first document is all the front matter with the little Roman numerals. The second document is your text, starting with what are Arabic numerals, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Make them separate documents, do the page numbers, go onto Adobe and merge the documents. On campus, just about every computer has that Adobe. You can send it to us, we can merge it for you. That's the easy way to do the page numbers. Be really careful in using section breaks. Those are really hard for us to find when we're doing some editing. If you don't know what you're doing, you'll probably mess up your document more than help it. But that's how you would do these page number differences if you were going to keep it one document. Please do use the page numbering. Somebody hired a formatter for them. They charged them $1,000, and the format person went into the footer on every page and typed the number in. They're not in the same place on every page. We catch it in a second. That person spent $1,000. Be very careful with some of the formatters that are out there. We don't vet any of them. And if somebody starts telling you that we're formatting it wrong, USF is formatting it wrong, and they know how to format it right, don't work with them because they're going to take your money. We're the ones that are judging the formatting. We may not be doing it right, but we're doing it the way that the USF likes it. And so don't spend your money on that. I'm not saying that there aren't a lot of good ones out there. I don't know who they are. So I've had many students pay $1,000 and they've had to reformat it. So just be careful with that. So the other really good tip I could give you is at the end of every section, at the end of chapter 1, chapter 2, end of your table of contents, use a page break. All you have to do is go up to insert, page break. And what that does is that you can add stuff in that section, but it doesn't mess up anything after it. So that's the beauty. When you go back and have to fix something in chapter 1 and you add a paragraph, it doesn't mess up all of the formatting you did on chapter 2. So at the end of a chapter, put a page break. You can add as much as you want. The pagination at the bottom will keep on going, and you don't mess up any formatting in the next section. So those are my best format tips for you. We do have, you can go online and schedule an appointment through bookings. That's a Teams function, and you can meet with Ashley and she can help you with some of those things. We do limit them to 15 minutes. We're not, last spring we did over 220 dissertations and they all come in, yes, you guessed it, on the day they're due. So we have, to date, we only have 20. Theses are due in 2 weeks. We're expecting over 200. So as of June 12th, we only have 20 theses and dissertations that have been submitted. So there are 200 coming. So the later in the semester you wait, the longer it does take. And so we got to focus on getting them formatted. So do set up an appointment. We're not going to do the formatting for you, but we are certainly happy to help you do it. So let's go to the next slide. Okay, submission deadlines. All right, so the thesis is due in 2 weeks on July 26th, and the dissertation for summer is due on July 2nd, because the 3rd is actually a holiday. We'll take it on the 3rd, but somebody was upset that we had something due on a holiday, so we moved it to the 2nd. Those are the deadlines. We strongly urge you to keep those deadlines if you possibly can. If there's a problem, you can always email me and we can talk about an extension. Please know that if you do ask for an extension, the latest I can give you is July 17th, and yours will be reviewed last. And so we got to get everybody done who was submitted on time. For those of you graduating in fall and spring, you can see the deadlines there. We're constantly being asked right now, oh, because of COVID, are you going to move the deadlines? I don't want to move the deadlines because you know what happens. As I just explained to you, people turn it in on the deadline. On June 26th, we're going to get 100 to 120 theses that will be submitted on that day. The day before, we will not have any. So everybody waits to the deadline. So I'd rather keep the deadlines and encourage people who can get them in. And if you have a situation where you need an extension, we'll work the best way we can with you. But we don't change the dates because all that would do is just encourage people to turn them in later and later. And we've set them as late as we can possibly set them in order to get all of the ones that come in done. So those are our deadlines. And it takes us about 7 to 10 days to get it reviewed. So just be patient with us. Okay, let's talk about what are registration requirements? I think that's the most frustrating thing in your last semester. There are so many things to register for. So let me explain to you what you've got to register. First, register to graduate. Register to graduate. Your department should be on top of you to do that. It's pretty important. But that is usually, it's probably passed already, but it still stays open. So don't worry. If you haven't done it, make sure you register to graduate. In the semester in which you want to graduate, you must be registered for a minimum of 2 credits. For a minimum of 2 credits. So you register to graduate, that basically tells the registrar's office, hey, I want a diploma at the end of this semester. All of that information goes to the registrar's office. It helps them set up degree certification. The next thing that you need to do is to register for ETD. Register for ETD. What that does is tell my office, hey, I'm going to submit my thesis or dissertation this semester. And so we now know who to look for, okay? We know that you're going to do it. It also checks and makes sure that you're registered, okay? Because I can't change a grade if you're not registered. So the ETD process goes over and checks the registrar's office to make sure that you're registered. So please, tonight, go register for ETD. There's no obligation on your part. Please understand with all of these registrations, if you don't finish this semester, they just disappear on their own and you have to register again next semester, fresh. So there's no harm in registering for ETD. It just lets me know that it's coming. The most important part of ETD registration is that is the information that is used to generate the commencement program. That's how your name gets in the commencement program. If you do not register by July 3rd, your name will not be in the commencement program. You don't have to turn it in, although that's the dissertation date to turn in the ETD, but you do have to be registered for ETD by July 3rd or your name will not appear in the commencement program, okay? Also, please be very careful. If you're getting your EDD, Doctorate of Education, you're going to come in and you're going to see choices. EDD, DBA, PhD, whatever you pick is what's going to go into the commencement program. The biggest error that people make is if you're a doctor, a PhD in education, and you see Doctor of Education and you click that, that's why it says EDD in the program, because you picked the wrong degree. I don't have any way of checking that, so it just comes out the way it is. So be careful when you add that information. All right, so we've done register for graduation. You got ETD registration. Now you can also register for commencement. That is something totally different. Commencement is to walk across the stage. Now, unfortunately, I don't know how far this has gotten out, but it will be a virtual commencement again in August, and that breaks our hearts. We tried really hard to do something, but we cannot find a facility large enough to do what we needed to do. So it will be virtual this summer. And they didn't do commencement registration last semester. I'm not sure now if they'll do it this semester, but that's what commencement registration is for. It tells them that I'm going to walk across the stage so that when you come, we have a card for you. If it's virtual, they're just going to read the commencement program. Okay, the other thing that you need to do is that you need to register for ProQuest eventually. Okay, so when you go in to submit your dissertation for us to review it, we use something called ProQuest. Basically, it's just going to help us move data around. So you submit it to ProQuest, it comes over to our office, we can review it, we're going to make some edits on it in PDF, send it back to you. You're going to make the changes. You're going to submit it as a resubmission in ProQuest. Don't submit it as a new document. So we're going to talk about how to do that. So those are all the registrations that you have to do so that you can finish this semester. So let's look at how you submit it. So we've got the submission requirements. It's really, I'm sorry to like be in your face. I really can't. It's in like 6-point font for me to read. So you know what I may do is I may just put it up on my screen. You can see me, but I can't see anything if I do it this way. Okay, so what you're going to have to do. So when you submit it, you don't submit it to us until you have had your defense. Okay, you have to have your defense. And then at the defense, I would encourage you to take the certificate of approval with you. Okay, that's a piece of paper. It's located on our website and call it a COA. That is where you type in the members of your committee and they sign off on it. Your departments may have a successful defense form, so you might have to fill that out. That stays at the college. The certificate of approval is totally signed when your entire committee says that your thesis or dissertation is done. They're all done with it. It's perfect, ready to go. Then everybody signs off on it. I encourage you to take it to your defense because it's hard to get hold of people. It's fine to use DocuSign to have it signed, but you know, if you take it to your defense, you can kind of circulate it around, let them sign off on it. You can do DocuSign right after the defense. What many committees will do is that the people on the committee will sign it saying, yeah, I trust your major professor. And when you're all done, then your major professor signs it. So discuss that with your major professor. Some departments won't do it. And with DocuSign these days, and as you know, all defenses will be online this summer. So it's probably not as big an issue as it is when we were doing things face to face. Okay, so we want you to do that, your certificate of approval. Okay, so that after you totally defend it, everything is corrected, then you submit it to us through ProQuest. Please know this has come up a lot lately. Once your dissertation is approved or your thesis is approved by our office, you can no longer make any edits. I hate to tell you, to this day, every time I open my thesis or dissertation, I find a typo. Okay, it's a fact of life. You will find a typo going forward, but double check, make sure that everything is right before you turn it in, because once we approve it, it gets sent off to ProQuest, and we'll talk about that. I can't change it after that. There are no changes. So once we totally approve it, it can't be changed anymore. So let's go to the next slide. Oh, I have to do it now too. Okay. So you see the certificate of approval. We're going to talk about the embargo option and the copyright as we go along. So let's go on to, you see the committee members where they need to sign on there. All right, so the other thing you have to do is a plagiarism check. This is probably the most confusing thing to your committee. This is done by your major professor. Each and every one of you is registered in a thesis or a dissertation course in Canvas. What your major professor has to do is to go into that thesis or dissertation course and set up an assignment. They can call it thesis. I don't care. They can call it Joe. I don't care what they call it. They set up an assignment and they turn on the Turnitin function. You then can go in and upload your thesis or dissertation via Turnitin, and it will run a plagiarism check. Now, what you have to understand about Turnitin and most quote unquote plagiarism checkers is they're really actually text matchers. Text matchers. So that goes and looks for matching text. Okay? So it's not really a plagiarism checker. What it's going to do is it's going to print a report, and we'll show one in just a minute, on the side. And your major professor needs to go in and decide whether it's been plagiarized or not. Okay? People are always concerned about the percentage. Oh my God, it's 40%. The percentages mean nothing. They mean nothing. I was talking to a young lady the other day who was worried about the plagiarism on her, if she had plagiarized. Okay, well, if you're worried about it, you probably didn't do it. But if you're worried about it, okay, so she turned it in. please don't turn in your, don't run the plagiarism checker till you're totally done. You are done, never going to make another change. Because Turnitin holds on to every draft that you run through the plagiarism checker. So if you run it through the first time and it's 25%, but you haven't finished, then you finish it, you're going to come in, now it's going to be up at 70% because you're plagiarizing yourself. Okay, so please, the plagiarism check is the last thing you do. So I'll show you what it looks like, but let's talk about how you get it done first, okay? Turnitin is kind of funky. It likes a doc file, DOC. It doesn't really care about docx and PDF. Now you can run a docx and a PDF through it and it might just work just fine for you. But if you're having trouble, try a doc file. How do I get that? You just go in under Save As and pick DOC. So what I would recommend that you do, here's my perfect thesis or dissertation. It's perfect. I'm going to make a copy of it. Put the perfect one off to the side. Do the plagiarism check on the copy that you made, okay? Because it's the same as the other one. And so you can turn that to a doc file, won't hurt anything. What you can do is you can take out any figures or images. So if you've got photographs in there or some figures, those take up a lot of space and the plagiarism checker doesn't really like those things. So you can take out figure 1, figure 2. Okay, I'm just looking at the text. It doesn't have to be pretty, okay? If your document's over 20 megabytes, that means you have a heck of a lot of figures in there, okay? Or it's really, really big. What you can do is shrink the font down to 2 or 3 point font and run it through. We can't read it, but the plagiarism checker can, okay? So those are some suggestions. Please don't wait, you know, oh, my thesis is due at 5 p.m. It's 4:45. Let me run the plagiarism check. No, I don't know how long it's going to take. It can take 15 or 20 minutes. It can take a couple of hours. I would do it the night before you want to turn it in. In addition, your major professor has to sign off on it. So you got to give that person some time to look at it. So you want to work with them, okay? So let's look at the next one. So let's see what it looks like, okay? So here are some examples of what Turnitin looks like. So if you look on the side over there, what it does is this one came up 13%. Remember, if yours says 48%, it still might be okay. It's up to you and your professor. As you can see on the slide, it tells them where they got this information, okay? So it highlights the text and it tells your major professor where it came from. So you and your major professor or your major professor by him or herself can go through and check and make sure that there is no plagiarism. Turnitin doesn't tell me that it's plagiarized, it just highlights suspicious parts. And the word suspicious sounds weird, but I mean, it just means that check this out. Let's say that you're in a class and part of the class is that you had to write the introduction to your literature review, you had to write a literature review, blah, 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 and you had to run it through Turnitin. Well, that's going to show up as plagiarized in the future, but it's going to show up as it was your paper. And your professor said that was okay, so it's going to be fine, okay? It's fine. So you want the major professor to look this over. They're going to decide whether it's good or not. And then you just print out the front page. All we want to know is that it was done, okay? All we want to know is done. If your professor says 48%, you know, similar text is okay, we're fine with that because we're trusting you and the major professor, okay? So that is the plagiarism check, okay? What do you do then? What do you do? Okay, so you take your certificate approval. It's got to be completely signed. It's okay if it's DocuSigned, but it should come back to you, okay? Don't send it to us, because we get all of these papers and it's hard for us to keep them all together. We want you to submit this paperwork as a single email to us, okay? A single email. Don't send us different emails because it's hard for us to keep up with everything. So we want the certificate of approval and the first page of your plagiarism check. And if you're doing a dissertation, we want the certificate from the Survey of Earned Doctorates. Okay, so what you do there is there's a little link on our website, and you go in and you fill out the Survey of Earned Documents. This is funded by the federal government. They like to track where all of our doctoral students all across the country go and work. Okay, so it's how they're tracking doctoral education. Please fill it out. If you run on a question that makes you uncomfortable, don't answer it. Okay, I heard that they ask you for your social security number. I don't know if it's true or not. I have a feeling it is. I can tell you why I think they're asking for it. There is software out there that can track you to your job based on your income tax. Okay, so that's what the social security number would be for. It's a safe place to give it. It's not a problem, but if you don't want to, I had a student very upset one of these workshops. Fine, don't put it in there, just skip it. You know, if you don't want to answer a question, just skip it. I just ask that you go in and complete the Survey of Earned Doctorates. If you leave the whole thing blank, which people have done, I just did the report for the, it goes up to Raleigh, North Carolina. I did it last week. I had 2 people that left it all blank. I had over 100 people that filled it out, okay? Because then that's commensurate with the number of PhD grads that we had. So it's up to you, but I do ask you to do it, and you do need to provide the packet. Now, you can send the entire packet. I want everything in one email. You can send it to etd@grad.usf.edu, okay, and then we've got it. It will eventually go into your permanent record so that we can prove that you did finish everything. We should be opening, we just moved into phase 1 today. I think there will be people in the Office of Graduate Studies starting in July. After the 4th, I'm sure there'll be somebody there. You can drop it by in person if you so desire. I would definitely check on our website and just see what's happening when we're open. So this slide is correct, but it's not correct for this very minute. But there will be people there in July if you feel so compelled to bring it by, but it is perfectly fine to email it to us. There shouldn't be a problem. Okay, so what happens after you do all that? We need your certificate of approval, plagiarism check, thesis, and if your dissertation, we need the said survey. Once we get those 3 pieces of paper and we check that you've done your ETD registration, then we're ready to go to stage 2. And that is when you submit your ETD to ProQuest, okay? So you're going to do that. What you're going to do, it's got to be your final version, okay? So make sure that when you turn it in, you're done, okay? We will always ask you to format something 99.9% of the time. Now, Ashley told me today that there was one that was practically perfect in every way. So I feel like Mary Poppins, but there was one today that came in that they had followed all of the directions. Engineering is pretty lucky. Catherine Burton does a really good job of checking things, but please just go ahead and submit things if you think it's right and you want to well, can you check it and make sure before I submit it? That's what the submission process is. So please just go ahead and submit it. We do our best not to ask you to make superfluous edits, but we're likely to see something. So go ahead and turn it in. So just make sure that you formatted it, make it a PDF. Okay, this is your final version. Okay, and you're going to now submit it to ProQuest. Okay, so how do you submit or create a ProQuest account? So these links are in our quick links, so you can click you go to the ProQuest ETD Administrator website, you're going to sign on, and you're going to set up an account. Now, here's the trickiest part, okay? The trickiest part. Put an email into this website that you check. Students are famous for putting their USF email and then they never check their USF email, they only check their Gmail. So if you check your Gmail and you don't have your USF hooked up to it, you're not going to hear from us. What happens is you set up this account and that is the email that we will direct all correspondence to. We have no way of knowing what your favorite email is. So whatever you put in here is what you're going to have things sent to. So make sure you check this account, okay? Hit the sign up button. You will get a confirmation that you've set up an account. And so now you got to answer some questions. So let's go over the answers to these questions. The first thing is type of publishing, okay? Type of publishing. Traditional publishing. We strongly suggest this. Why do I strongly suggest it? Because it's $0 and 0 cents, okay? It's free. So traditional publishing, what that will get for you is it will put it up in our Scholar Commons. It puts it up in Google Scholar. It hits the vast majority of the search engines that are out there simply because it's in Google Scholar, okay? So do consider that strongly. But the other option, which is $95, is open access. But I wanted open access. I want people to see it. All that open access is going to do for you is get you just a few obscure websites. I'm telling you that Google Scholar goes out to just about everything. You're in good shape with that. But it's up to you. If you want to pay the $95 and get a few extra websites, you're welcome to do that. I don't recommend it, okay? You're on the ProQuest site, it goes out already. You're on the Google Scholar site, you're on Scholar Commons, that shows up everywhere. So it's up to you. So the first answer would just be traditional publishing, unless you feel differently. The next question I really urge you to talk with your major professor about. I get the most questions about this one. This is the embargo option. What it means is that you can delay the publishing of your thesis or dissertation for 1 year. 1 year. After a year, it will go live and people can see it. If you need to go an extra year, and I discourage that strongly, that's actually an ethics violation, to be honest with you. You should get your work out published as quickly as possible. Now, sometimes if you're doing a book or something, it may take longer than that. But if you want to extend the embargo, you have to write me and ProQuest and request an extension, okay? But what does it mean, okay? So it's going to say delaying release, okay? And you have two choices. One, immediate worldwide access, no embargo. For my students, that's usually pretty good. You are highly unlikely to take your dissertation as it is and submit it for publication in its entirety. Many of you wrote the lit review a year ago on some of these. If you're going to publish it, you're going to update the literature review. You're likely to run another statistical analysis. You're going to refresh the discussion. It's sufficiently different. I have heard from some publishers, as long as it's 20% different, there's not a problem with it getting published. But if you're in the medical sciences, engineering, things like that, or you want to go for a patent or something, then you do want to delay the publishing of that. You want an embargo. And that means that we'll take it. It sits in our vault, but nobody can see it until a year after the date. And then it will open up into Scholar Commons. So that is a choice. I think it is very discipline specific. You need to talk to your major professor about the best thing. Please know that once you choose worldwide access, immediate access, no embargo, you cannot change your mind, okay? It cannot be embargoed once you said go ahead and let it released. Because once it hits the World Wide Web, somebody downloads it, something happens, and it's already out there. I had somebody last week email me 5 years ago. They had a thesis. Now they want to publish it, and they wanted me to embargo it. It had already been downloaded 1,000 times. I mean, you can't embargo something. So think about that. Now, this question is also on your certificate of approval, so make sure that they match, okay? About 20% of the students change their mind. They do one thing on the certificate of approval and something else in ProQuest. What wins? ProQuest wins, because that ProQuest is the one that has it on their end, and they're going to follow whatever you tell them to do. So if there's a confusion, we're going to go with what ProQuest says, because what actually we use ProQuest for is it helps us bundle all the theses and dissertations so that they easily load into Scholar Commons. So we basically take what ProQuest gets and we upload it in Scholar Commons. Okay, so tough decision. I'm happy to answer questions on that, but it's really best if you talk to your major professor. They will give you good insight into that. Please know, if you're an international student, that if you plan on getting a patent in a foreign country, you need to make sure that you have not presented your research, even at the Graduate Student Research Symposium. You haven't presented it anywhere, or you will not get a patent in a foreign country. In the US, some of the smaller conferences they don't care about, but the foreign countries are much more concerned about that. So think about this, have good conversations with your major professor about what's the best thing to do here. Okay, so there's some other optional services, okay? Copyright. Yeah, I want a copyright. Okay, well, look at it. ProQuest is going to charge you $55. If you do it yourself through the USA Copyright Office, it's $35. Guess what? You already got a copyright, okay? You don't need to get another copyright. It's already copyrighted through the university. So I would say no to that, but you may feel like you need to do that. Again, chat with your major professor, but your work is already copyrighted. Ordering hardbound copies. I would discourage you from doing this. Number one, they're very expensive. They're about $200 a thesis or dissertation, okay, because of the book covers and things like that. I have seen from many students that have chosen to do this through ProQuest that the quality of the work is not so good. They've been very disappointed. So if you really, really, really want hardbound copies, then what I would encourage you to do is to search for one for yourself online, okay? Look for offline printing and binding. Be very careful. Some of these places are going to steal your work and publish it as their own. So they'll be happy to bind it for you, but they're going to want you to sign it over to them, and then they can sell it like a book and make some money. So be very careful. If you're going to do it, make sure it's just going to be printed and bound, but it will not be published. Okay, so be very, very careful on that. I understand why you might want to do that. Most professors are pretty happy with an electronic copy or a spiral bound copy from ProQuest, which is like $3. It's up to you. But I understand it's a great accomplishment. You should be very proud. If you want a bound one, go right ahead, but it will cost about $200. All right, after answering all those questions, how much is it going to cost you? If you don't take the copyright, you don't pay for open access, and don't order hardbound copies, it's $0. There is no cost for us using ProQuest. It just allows us to move documents back and forth. So you get to choose how much you want to spend here. And I'm giving you as much information as I think I can about what the value would be in any of the things. I would say I wouldn't do any of them, but that's totally up to you. After you submit it, you'll get a confirmation email, and it'll come to you saying it's submitted. Go relax. Watch a movie, take a nap, okay? Give us a week, 10 days, we'll get back with you. If you do turn it in late, this was a confusion last semester, if you turn it in late or get an extension, it will be longer than 7 to 10 days before we can respond. We have to finish the people who submitted on time first. All right, so what happens when you submit it? You're going to turn it in. Like I said, we're going to do our best to get it back in 7 to 10 days. It does depend on how carefully you follow the directions, but most people have to do one revision. Most people do. That's just the way it goes. You know, we'll notice that your headings are not consistent, or there's some error over here, or we'll ask you something about your IRB. So as we talked about earlier, you're going to submit it. What's going to happen is it's going to go through ProQuest. It's going to come back to the email address that you put into ProQuest, and it's going to be an annotated PDF. An annotated PDF. I mean, it's going to have comments on the side. The thing you do not want to do is you do not want to edit the PDF. That is a big mistake. It is difficult to edit a PDF. You're going to mess up the formatting. Not a good idea. Well, how do I do it? You take the PDF and you open up that Word document that you saved, the perfect copy that you submitted originally before you PDF'd it and submitted it to ProQuest. Edit that Word document, okay? Edit that. When you finish all the edits, you re-PDF that and submit it again as a resubmission through ProQuest. And we will look at it again. So I'm just telling you again, these little tips. Don't try to edit the PDF. It is just too difficult to do. Go back to your Word document and make your changes there. Comes in for the second one, it goes to the bottom of the stack, 7 to 10 days again for review. Okay, I'm going to quickly go through MFA because I don't know if anybody's on here. Are there, Ashley, any MFAs? I can't hear you.
Sorry, they wouldn't graduate until the spring.
Okay. All right, so if there is anybody MFA, I'm going to go through real quickly. It's the same process, except you submit it directly to our office. For those of you that wonder what the heck, okay, this is Master of Fine Arts. This is usually a book. It's a book of poetry, a book of short stories. It's a book. They do intend to publish it. So we keep it. It does not ever get published into Scholar Commons. We keep it out because the idea is they are absolutely going to publish it. So we're going to need, you know, the certificate of approval form, the plagiarism check, and then you're going to deal strictly through the ETD website. And so they just have different things, but it's the same process. Okay, help sessions. We have one-on-one help sessions, as you can see. So you can click on bookings. This is a new feature, and so it's kind of like well, it's exactly what they're using at Morsani to make medical appointments. You can make an appointment 24 hours in advance, and you will get an individualized session with Ashley. So she will get on and tell you what to do. We're also we do help sessions and workshops. So this is a workshop, and we may do another one, but we have good attendance here today. But we do some help sessions, especially as the semester goes on. We will probably set up some Teams meetings, and they will be regular Teams things, so the chat and everything will work, and get people to come in. So and the beauty of a help session is a lot of times it's good to listen to the questions that somebody else asks because it's the same question you have. So if she could go through one time and show you how to do page numbers, or one time and show you how to do the leader dots. So watch the website for those. We often do them once a week, but we also now have the one-on-one sessions. All right, here's the tricky part. Previously published materials. We've got to be very, very careful. Many of you in the sciences and some in the social sciences, but mainly the sciences, do what they call a 3-article dissertation. So you've published one article, usually it's in print, and you got 2 more that have been submitted. So what do we want to talk about? What I'm really concerned about here is you need copyright permission. I realize that you own the copyright on the article, but once it appears in print, you often sign that over, or always sign that over to the publisher. In order to use it in any other work, you have to ask permission. Okay, so if you've got an article, even if you've submitted it for possible publication, you need to talk to those people and ask them if it's okay for it to be in print. Now, it may be that they don't accept it. Okay, well, you did your due diligence. How do you do this? Very simple. You go to the website of the publisher, and usually over on the top or the right-hand side, they'll have a copyright permission button. If not, just put it in the help session and something will pop up. Usually it'll tell you what their copyright principles are. So for instance, I needed to copy some figures, and we'll come back and talk about figures, but I was doing a book. I had an author that had 3 figures. I went there and I went to go get copyright permission, and in big bold letters it says, if you are using 3 or fewer figures from a chapter, you do not need to ask for copyright. Perfect. So I didn't have to do it. Screenshot that, take that, put it at the end of your dissertation or thesis in the appendix toward the end, so that we know what the copyright rules are for that publisher. If it's an article, then get the copyright permission. If you borrowed a test or something from somebody, you got to get copyright permission. If you took something off the web, guess what? A lot of it is copyrighted. You need to look on those sites and figure out, email them and find out if you can have copyright permission. Sometimes there's a form and you'll get an official email back saying, yeah, no problem. Just take that, copy it, or attach the email to the end of your thesis or dissertation so that we know. We do check for copyright violations, okay? It's a big deal. I had somebody threaten to sue a student because she used something from the copyright. I got something today in the mail. Somebody was complaining about copyright. So we're very picky about that. It is costly. It could cause you some trouble. So you definitely want to make sure that you get copyright clearance. Now, the other thing, a really, really good thing, Ashley's listed on the bottom of this slide. There are 2 links that you can go to that tells you about the policies and procedures. And we have a wonderful copyright librarian who will respond at this point via email. Her name is Lietta Schmidt, S-C-H-M-I-D as in dog, T as in Tom, Schmidt, Lietta, L-E-E-T-T-A. But it's if you just send a question to the library going, you need help with the copyright librarian, she will help you. She is fantastic. I talk to her all the time. She does workshops for us during the school year. Definitely get in touch with Lietta. If you're having trouble finding out if something on a website is copyrighted, do it. Be careful with images. Images are copyrighted, okay? So you take a picture of a Coke can and put it in your thing, that's copyrighted, okay? So you're gonna have to get copyrights on images. If you borrow tables or figures from an article or a book, you need copyright. If it's something that you have published, you'll need copyright to put it into something else. Anything that you think needs copyright, and that's what we also check and maybe point some things out to you that you didn't think about. We need documentation in your appendix that you have either show us that it doesn't need copyright via something off the website, or go ahead and provide the email or the documentation that shows that copyright permission has been obtained. A lot of the surveys that people use off the web, those are often copyrighted. So you need to prove to us that it doesn't need copyright clearance to be included. So if you got a survey off of the web, you need to try to find out who that web person is and get permission from them to use it. The other thing is to not print the survey in your dissertation and just put a link to it on the web. Then you don't need copyright clearance, okay? Because you're just providing a web link. It's when you take the document and try to reprint it, that's when you get in trouble. Are there some questions on that, Ashley? There usually are. You're on.
I haven't seen it just yet, okay. But if anybody has questions, you can always send them to the email or to the chat.
Okay, I got one in the chat that says, what if a table that you adapted from a previous study? Ooh, you got to be real careful with the adaptation, okay? You can't just change one word. If you've changed it, I'm making this number up. If it's 20 to 25% different, then no, you don't need it. But if it's a very small change, no. Same thing with figures. Somebody took an image out of a hospital brochure in Wisconsin. Don't even ask me how I found it. And all they did was the bed was going this way and they made it go this way. That's not adapting it. Okay, just changing the perspective. That is not an adaptation. So You do have to change it a little bit more than a little bit. So I hope that helped. Any other questions? Yeah. Please send us the link of this. It's already posted on the website at ETD, on our ETD website. It's already posted. They wanted a link to the PowerPoint. It's already posted. Any other questions? All right.
I have a question.
Okay.
So someone asked if they own, or if they own it, if they created it. I'm pretty sure that's a yes. Like if you draw it again or recreate it, does that still count as copyright?
That's a tough question. I know you think it's easy, but if you create something new, please recognize that it falls under the copyright of the dissertation. So let's say you drew a new figure, a new way of displaying something. That is copied by the copyright associated with your thesis or dissertation. If it is yours and it's in another copyrighted document, you need to get permission from the first copyright. The bottom line is, as the developer, you never own anything. Okay, I don't own any article that I've put out there. So if I want to reuse a table, I just lost, somebody sent a question and it just disappeared. So send it back and I'll try to hold on to it. So the answer, I think, is yeah, you still need to get copyright. You have to go back to the original publisher and ask them if you can use it in your thesis or dissertation. It's usually not a problem, but copyright only holds the original document. Okay.
One more question. So student asked, if they reference an argument from their master's thesis and have cited it, do they still need to obtain copyright permission?
Again, that's a tough one.
Focused.
Huh?
I think he's asking more about like the content of his master's thesis. If he's like referencing that argument.
Well, if you're I mean, it all depends. Are you taking 3 pages, a paragraph? You know, if it's a quote and you've already attributed it to the thesis, then there's no problem. There's no copyright issue. You know, if it's going to be like quote. If you are taking a chapter or several pages from your thesis and reproducing it in your dissertation, that's not really a quote. So yeah, you would need copyright, but since it's a master's thesis from USF, I don't think that matters. But if you printed it anywhere, it would. Please do acknowledge that that's where it came from. Did that answer the question? That one was really hard because I'm not exactly sure what you're asking me.
I'm not entirely sure either, but that is, but if, let me see, I think that's Aaron Lewis who sent that to me. If that doesn't answer your question, let me know.
Yep, please. I know Aaron, so he can just shoot me an email or whatever. But yeah, it's not a problem if it's just an argument. You just want to attribute it to the thesis, but it has to do with actual reproduction of chunks of text. That's what I'm worried about. And I'm sorry, somebody sent me a text and it disappeared, and I'd love for you to send it again. I thought it would stay there and it disappeared before I could answer it. So if you want to send it, I'll stop and answer it the minute it comes. Okay, so the other thing you need to do when you are using work that's already in print, you have to indicate where it came from, okay? Now, this is where you want to talk to the publishers. They're getting weird, okay? I think it's not too many years away if you're doing a multiple article dissertation where you write the introduction, chapter 2, title of article 1, link to the article. Chapter 3, title, link to the article. Publishers are getting funky about that. We had one that made us put the entire reference in the footer of every page of the reproduction. So every page of chapter 2, okay. Okay, so this person's asking, I include the drawings created by the participants in my study in there. So that's fine. As long as they're original drawings by the students that you tested, that's fine. No problem on copyright there. But do make sure that it was in your IRB. Fair use worksheet, yes. The fair use worksheet is perfect. That tells you whether you can use something. You just fill it out and then you stick it into the appendix and we'll see it from there. So that's good. Okay, so as far as disclosure, anytime, so if you have an article, you need to put the citation of where they can find the real text of that article. I would encourage you, if you're doing the 3-article dissertation, go back to the Word document that you submitted to the publisher originally. It is very difficult to put a PDF document into a Word document. It just doesn't format right. Now you can do chapter 2, see Appendix A for the article, and you can do that if you want and put the PDF in the appendix. We're not as picky about the formatting in the appendix, okay? But you've got to tell us where the real article is, and so we're giving you some examples there. Also, if you have multiple authors, remember that in order to use it in your dissertation or thesis, you're supposed to be the primary author. That may not always be the first one, but you've got to be the one that's done most of the work. So you're going to have to document that to us. Some of you did you took the results chapter from somebody else's dissertation or article in press. Yeah, you're going to have to get copyright for that. You can use it because that's what you wrote. I get it, but it's in print somewhere else. So again, these are the hardest questions. So you just have to feel free to shoot us an email. Let's see. So I just talked about the reprint. Again, check with the publishers. The reprints, they're getting funny about that because, as you know, maybe you don't know, there's a big war going on. So for instance, in the library, you have wonderful access to all journals, a lot of journals across the world, and then you have Pronto, which gets you them that we don't even have. But what happens is the publishers are fighting with the universities. Each one of those subscriptions costs over $1 million that we have in the library, and we have to pay that every year. And so the publishers are no longer making any money selling paper journals. They only make money on the subscriptions. And with the advent of open access journals, the money is going to that journal, excuse me, and not to the publisher. So EBSCO and those are really struggling. So they're getting funnier about you putting things into other documents. They're usually okay with the dissertation, but they want to make sure that you identify where they're from. So as I said before, if you're going to use a reprint of an article, it's better to put it in the appendix. And where you wanted it in the text, just refer to the appendix. It's just difficult to put a PDF in the document. We talked about copyrighted materials. So there's the fair use guide. There's Leetta Schmidt's name at the bottom, 2 lines up from the bottom with her email. She's awesome. I'm telling you, she's awesome. She will help you. She responds quickly. I really highly recommend her. So we've talked about this. The next thing is the IRB and IACUC approvals. Okay, IRB is for human subjects, IACUC is for animals. What I want you to do is you need to include the approval letter in your appendix. So the appendix start getting messy, okay, but we're going to be looking for it. You need to include this approval. Where can I find it? I can't find it. It's my major professors. Okay, fine. Go into their ARC account. Have the major professor do it. You can go in the office and let that person check into their ARC account. If you put it in, go into your ARC account. You should have a list of all the IRB approvals that you have. You just print out the letter that tells us that it was approved. And nowadays, you're even supposed to put in the exempt ones. So let us know with that letter from the IRB telling it's approved. The same thing with IACUC. Now here's the thing with IRB and IACUC, because people confuse it with copyright. All the IRB and IACUC do is tell you, they really worry about how you're going to treat the animals, how you're going to treat the human subjects. And they only look at it before you start the experiment. Well, yeah, they come back in a year and ask me to do a report. Yeah, well, they don't come and check the report. They're just telling you to fill something in. So I ask you to please, for instance, it's a really big thing nowadays to use photos. And photos make me super nervous, okay? What happens is you can get sued if you put somebody's photo in your thesis or dissertation and you don't have their permission. When you come to the research symposium, we make you sign a photo release. If you go to some USF events, they make you sign a photo release. If somebody's taking photos, there's usually a photo release. So if you're going to take photos of people, you need to have a photo release. IRB sometimes doesn't catch that. I think they're getting better. But we had a thesis a couple years ago that was using Instagram. And it was taking photos. As you know, you can go into Instagram and you can change the face so it looks weird, okay? And they were using that for some kind of experiment. I don't know what it was. And I asked the student, I said, she put some pictures in there. And I'm like, okay, did you tell the people that you might put their photo in your thesis or dissertation? They didn't know how to answer me. Here's my thought process. It's one thing if I come and participate in the experiment and I know you're going to, mess up my face so I look weird. It's another to put it out there for the whole world to see. It's two permissions to me. Yeah, I agreed to have you do that to me. No, I didn't agree to have you put it on the 5 o'clock news, So in your informed consent, you should offer the participants an option to opt out of having their photos released for anything that isn't the actual experiment. And so we'll ask you to show us that part of your informed consent form, okay? We want to know that the pictures that you chose. If you have a picture, a lot of autoethnographies or ethnographies, I want to know that they gave you permission to show their picture in your thesis or dissertation. We had one recently on tweets, okay? They took it off the internet. I was really nervous about this one because it was from a fat-shaming internet site. They're like, well, these were tweets on a public site. Yes, you're right. But did you really need to put the Twitter handle and the photo of the person in your dissertation? Did that really make a difference? The copyright editor and I decided, no, let's take that information out. So we blocked it out. You don't want to get people to sue you. You don't want to open it up and say, hey, I'm doing this. Keep the tweets were fine. The tweets were open, okay? But you just want to make sure that what you're putting out there doesn't hurt somebody or do something. So that's what we're looking for on IRB. IRB doesn't know that you put those photos in your dissertation. That's what students usually say. Well, my IRB said it was okay. No, they said it was okay to defame or to mess up the picture. They didn't say it was okay to print it. Okay, so that's where the difference is. So think about that. Now here's a big one, okay? Including data and HIPAA. I am not a huge fan of you putting your data set in your appendix. Why? Because you run the risk of putting HIPAA protected or FERPA protected, that's student protected data. Plus, there are so many websites that you can upload your data set to for use. I don't know why you want to put it in your thesis or dissertation. It just really is dangerous. We'll look at it and make sure that there's nothing there. But this slide just shows you that, you don't want names, you don't want telephone numbers, fax numbers, mail, emails, health plan account numbers. I mean, here's a perfect example. A couple years ago, I had a psychiatrist from LSU Medical Center call me up and he goes, hey, did you know that you have a thesis on eating disorders up in Scholar Commons, and it has 15 totally filled out informed consent forms. It had names, addresses, health plan, health insurance information, diagnoses. How did that happen? And I went over and I talked to, it wasn't Ashley, I talked to the person working in the ETD office at that time, and I said, how'd this go? And they were like, well, I missed it. And I don't understand how the major professor missed it. I don't understand how the student put it in there. And I don't understand how we missed it. But we had to take that down, and then we had to file a research misconduct suit because that's research misconduct. I don't know if the student lost their degree or not. I'm not sure on that one. I can tell you that the faculty member was sanctioned for 5 years being unable to do human subjects research because we went back and checked some other theses and we found 2 or 3 more with inappropriate HIPAA data in the thesis. So please, please, please do not use real names. No, make them up. Do not use real initials. We had a Title IX case on a thesis or dissertation. The person used the real initials of the people, so we knew exactly who they were talking about in the dissertation. This is really, really important. Pseudonames. And how do we know? If we see a name, we go back and look for a statement at the beginning of the method section that says all names are pseudonames. Put it on a chart. I'm a big fan of girl 1, girl 2, child 1, child 1A, child 1B. Whatever you want to do. It doesn't help to have their names. It makes it easier. Now, if you're doing ethnography and stuff, I know that you use real names and the people know about it, okay? And we'll know this is an autoethnography study, but be very, very, very careful. There are significant ramifications. We had another student that went down to Tampa General, and he had to go in and he was supposed to write down data. You can't take the data out of the hospital. He and a hospital employee Xeroxed 3 boxes of data, took them out of the hospital and put them in his car. He brought them up to USF and he put them in his unlocked office on his desk. Okay, that resulted in another research misconduct event. He had to redo his entire dissertation, and his faculty member who had since retired and earned the status of emeritus lost his emeritus status. So this is serious business, okay? So you got to be very, very careful. So I'm all about use Instagram, use Twitter, use Facebook, whatever. Take the names off. Please remember with children, you got to block out the eyes. You don't want to have people recognize people. You see this on the news all the time. Unless you have permission, and these are the things we're going to ask you. This goes for pictures. I'll never forget, a couple years back, a young man had a bunch of pictures in his thesis, and he kept saying, I have to get copyright, I have to get, I was like, yeah, you have to get copyright. So he came up to me at the end, he says, I'm going to get rid of all of them. And I said, really? Well, why are you going to do that? And I said, well, why did you put them in there? He says, oh, I just wanted my thesis to look like Wikipedia. Okay, so I'm just urging you, the laws are so strict, you don't want to get sued. Include in your thesis or dissertation just the stuff that needs to be there. Remember, you can publish it, you can add that, they'll help you get the copyright on it on the other end. Just be smart. All right, so I jumped into photography, so I've already kind of talked about that. At the end, I get excited about these things. So make sure that you can't use, when I first took this job 5 years ago, the first thing I had to do is go back through all of the dissertations and theses since the beginning of USF and identify all of the artwork. That's where you really need to talk to the copyright editor. I don't know this to be true or not, but for instance, if you want to put the Mona Lisa in your thesis, I'm not sure you can. There are some guidelines out there that tell you what can go in and what cannot go in. So definitely check it. If you have any questions, you're welcome to ask us. I will more than likely, if I don't know the answer, I am very quick to send you over to Lietta Schmidt to get. I was doing, okay, here's a great example. I was doing a 3MT competition regionally, and this person turned in the coolest slide for 3-minute thesis. And it was a Time magazine cover, because her thing is it's time to look at Alzheimer's disease, okay? She had a face and everything. Well, I saw the Time magazine cover and I immediately flagged it as a possible copyright violation. So I emailed the student and I asked her about it. She goes, oh, no. I modified it. I made the borders thinner and I made it wider. Well, I sent it over to Lietta Schmidt and she goes, copyright violation. So then we had to go talk to the university, and that university argued with us for a little bit, sent it to a copyright attorney who said copyright violation. So again, please be careful. We got something this morning in my email about a copyright violation on one of our theses. So this happens, people do look, there are people out there trying to find these things. We're trying to help you make sure that there's nothing that's going to make your thesis or dissertation a site for somebody to look at to try to sue you. So here are the frequently asked questions. If my thesis or dissertation hasn't yet been approved, can I still walk at commencement, or can your picture still go across the screen? Absolutely, okay? We do our best to get all thesis and dissertations approved by the Friday before commencement, but we do have some that come in late, and sometimes we don't finish it till the day grades are due, which you know is the Tuesday after commencement. But once you turn it into ProQuest, you are essentially done, except just make sure you make the corrections that we request of you as quickly as you can. Please don't go to the Himalayas and tell us that you can't do it. You will not graduate until I can't change your grade, and you won't get a transcript until you finish the edits, okay? How long will it take for my submission to be reviewed? It depends. If you submit it now, it could be done in a day. But if you submit it on the deadline, it's probably going to be 10 business days. So we do the best that we can do to get through them. If you submit it after the deadline, it'll probably be more like 15, because we've got some that we've got to get finished. So we'll do as fast as we can. It also depends on how carefully you follow the directions. So if they come in a mess, and some of them do, we'll probably send it back and very politely tell you it's a mess and you need to go and format it. One time somebody wrote me an email and said to the person who was reviewing ETD at that time, if you turn it in 2 weeks before the deadline, it's $75 that'll appear in your OASIS account after we approve it. If you turn it in within 2 weeks or on the deadline, it's a minimum of $100. If we have to do extensive edits on it, we charge you $25 more. These fees are charged to your OASIS account. So after we tell you it's done, that charge will go into your OASIS account, and you need to pay that in order to get your diploma. But this one student wrote me an email. He says, you know, I'm just tired of making the credits. I'll pay the $25 and let that person fix it. No, we don't make the edits. We just point things out, and trust us. We don't like to do extra work. So we're not looking for stuff to make your life miserable. We are very carefully picking out the things that are most important. How will I know that your submission has been reviewed? You will get an email. Okay, it will come to the email you put into ProQuest. Okay, it doesn't go to all of your emails. It just goes to that one. So check it. We've had a few instances where that went to spam. So check. I would please wait a week before you start asking us, where is it, where is it, where is it? But check your spam if you didn't get it. If I need help, who do you contact? We've got the ETD, so Ashley is really willing to help you, and you can come to our help sessions. So thank you for your patience. If you have questions, you can email them to Ashley now. You can try to text them to me. I am so sorry that this didn't go as smoothly as I had hoped, but I hope it was helpful. We really, want to see you succeed. We really want to make sure that you are successful. It is not our desire to slow it down. And please trust us, we're really just looking for the big edits. We're not sitting here, going through with a fine-tooth comb. But the first review of a paper usually takes about 45 minutes. So you do 45 times 200. Okay, can you please repeat the deadlines and fees that you just mentioned? Okay, so 2 weeks before. So that would be, if you submitted it today, it would be $75 if you were a thesis. Next Friday, it would be $75 if you're a dissertation. If you submit it tomorrow for a thesis, it's $100. Okay, so it's literally 14 days ahead of time. We keep track of that. Once we finish your review, we have a spreadsheet that we turn in the fees, and it goes through our financial office and goes over so that it appears in your OASIS account. And then you will be, you have to pay that. You have to, of course, clear out your OASIS account to release your transcript. So we submit the grades in waves. So we'll have a bunch of them due right around July 17th. We'll probably send in a bunch of grades then if you're done, and then we'll send in a bunch of grades a week later. We don't send them all in at once. We kind of just, as soon as we get 30, 40 grades, we turn them in to the registrar's office. So, and then once it goes there, that's when it shows up in OASIS. So 2 weeks, it's early, it's $75, 13 days up to the due date, it's $100. It's $100 all the way after that. And if we have to do a lot of edits, what does that mean? Like 3 times it comes back to you, or you just flat didn't edit it. And believe it or not, we get people submit it like that to us. That's going to be $125 because we do expect you to do some of the editing. Any other questions? You guys have been so patient with us.
I will. Ooh, sorry. Definitely, if you have concerns, please email the UTD office. We can't help you. Tell me that. Very important that we are able to help you.
I've got a question about, you know, when you're defending. No, the date starts when you submit it to ProQuest. That's the date we use to determine whether it's 2 weeks or not. Now, please remember, as you're setting your defense, okay, that talk with your major professor. I didn't say this earlier. It's really important. You want your committee on board, okay? Your committee needs 2 weeks to read it. When are they going to read it? The night before. I know that, but think about it, okay? If I have a paper and I have at least a week or 2 to read it, and I wait till the last minute to read it, who am I mad at? This girl, okay? I waited. I could have read a chapter on Monday and a chapter on Tuesday, but I waited till Thursday. That's my fault. But if you turn it into me on Wednesday and the defense is on Friday, who am I mad at? The student, because you didn't give me enough time to get it done. So sit down. So you've got to figure I've got 2 weeks to get them to read it before the defense. And then there's always, or not always, but typically edits to make. It takes about a week because you got to make the edits, get it back to your major professor. They got to read it, maybe make a few edits, send it back to you. So it has the 2 weeks early has to do with submission to ProQuest. But if you're going to submit it on time, so somebody said theirs was the 24th, that's about right. You know, if you're going to submit it on time for a PhD in 2 weeks, you better have your defense. Okay, because very, very few people defend and then can turn it in the next day. You usually have to make some edits, you got to get signatures, you got to do the plagiarism check, you know. Even if they don't want to read it again, although they probably should, you want to make the edits. And I'm just begging, we've had a lot of people lately say, oh, I made a typo on page 10, or one of my, you know, page numbers is wrong in the table of contents. It's already gone. Once you get the letter that says congratulations, it is too late. No changes can be made after that point. So, all right. Any other questions? So Ashley was saying that she's super happy to help you. She's got the bookings. She's going to do the workshop. She responds to email. I don't think our phone is hooked up. Is that right, Ashley? We couldn't do that?
Right. I need the instructions for how to do that.
Okay. But really use the bookings, shoot her an email. The university, there's been nobody on campus. I'm stunned at the number of phone calls I get. I check mine every day, but some of them are forwarded. I can't forward it. I have a different office in my department. It forwards me those emails. It doesn't forward my other emails, so it's our phone calls, so it's weird. But we are available by email. That, as you know, at USF, that's usually the fastest way to get an answer is to shoot an email to somebody because we're good about staying up on top of email. Any other questions?
I don't see any on my end.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. I hate not being able to see you, and next time I'll make sure, and you won't be here, I know, but I'll make sure that we can get the chat function working right. And have a great weekend, and let us know if we can help you.